We've just replaced a receptacle located at the end of the run. When you replace or install a middle-of-the-run receptacle, you need to do it in a different manner. Middle-of-the-run receptacles are located between a cable coming from the power source and an outgoing cable continuing on to another receptacle or other device. We will show you two different ways to wire a middle-of-run receptacle. Check with local codes to see which method is acceptable in your area. One way to wire a middle-of-run receptacle is to connect the incoming black wire to one of the brass terminals on the right side of the receptacle. Then, connect the outgoing black wire to the other brass terminal in this fashion. Now, simply attach the neutral wires, one to the top terminal and the other to the bottom terminal. No matter where you attach the neutral wires, in this case the result is the same. The current will return back to ground. So then, if current were flowing through this circuit, the incoming electricity would arrive at this point and either continue out to a device via a plug in the outlet, like we've already seen, or the electricity will flow across this tab from one terminal post to the other and continue onto other devices down the line. Returning current will arrive back to the receptacle and then return to ground via the returning neutral wire. We still need to properly connect all our ground wires together. We'll get to this in a moment. Before we do, let's take a look at another way to wire a middle-of-run receptacle. As we've seen before, if current were running through this circuit, it would be delivered to this receptacle via the incoming hot wire. In this example, we'll not connect this hot wire directly to this brass terminal post on the receptacle as you've seen before. Instead, we'll make a 3-wire connection by joining the incoming hot wire directly to the outgoing hot wire. Then we'll connect these 2 wires to the receptacle by using a special 3rd wire known as a pigtail in this fashion. Pigtails are short wires that are often used to connect multiple wires to a single contact, like terminals on receptacles or switches. Always use pigtails instead of connecting multiple wires to a single terminal post. This is a potentially dangerous situation. Instead, connect one end of a pigtail to the terminal screw in the standard fashion, and the other end connect to your home wiring using a twist-on wire connector that binds the wire cluster together to ensure a secure contact. Twist-on wire connectors, commonly called wire nuts, are available in a variety of sizes and are typically made from plastic and have a tapered conducting metal threaded insert on the inside that twists onto wires to hold them tightly together. When you use wire nut connections, strip about 1/2 inch of insulation off the ends of the wires. Depending on the style of connector you're using, you may need to twist your wires firmly together in a clockwise rotation before applying the wire nut. Other wire nuts require that you don't pre-twist the wires before applying. Read the packaging clearly before use to know what variety of wire nut you're using. Finally, to apply, twist the wire nut onto the ends of the wires in a clockwise fashion until the connection is finger tight. Don't over-tighten. Since twist-on connectors come in different sizes, choose the size that best suits the gauge and amount of wires you're using. Again, check your wire connector packaging for exact descriptions and proper uses. Now, going back to the middle-of-run receptacle we started wiring earlier, the next step would be to connect the white or neutral wires using a pigtail in the same way to a terminal post on the left side of the receptacle. Now, let's see how electricity affects this receptacle. When incoming current comes to this point, it will keep going along this path because there is a constant connection. If there is no plug inserted into the receptacle, the current will bypass it altogether. The current will travel down the line and return on the neutral wire. When there is an electrical device plugged into the receptacle, the current will flow both down the line and also through the electrical device plugged into the receptacle. Returning current will come back to the receptacle through the device's cord and will continue back to the power source through the household's neutral wires in this fashion. Lastly, Join your ground wires together. Use a pigtail to connect the ground wires to the grounding terminal on the receptacle. If the receptacle you're using is housed in a metal electrical box, add an additional pigtail to connect all of your ground wires to the side of the metal box. For safety reasons, metal boxes need to be grounded in case a hot wire were to come into contact with any part of the electrical box.
So in the course material, we discussed the two methods for terminating when you have more than one conductor entering a box. Now, one way is the method described as using the terminals to feed through the receptacle, and the other way is pigtailing. Now, some jurisdictions, some inspectors insist that you do pigtailing, and really, I don't think there's a problem using the terminals. The devices are designed for it. They're meant to feed through those terminals, and if you do your connections properly, either method, the only way you're going to have a problem is in human error. If you make a bad splice or a bad termination, don't tighten the screw enough, you're going to have a problem. Likewise in method 2, you're going to have a problem if you don't make a good proper splice for your pigtails. So either way, it all boils down to quality of work and doing it right and doing it properly. And while we're on the subject of pigtailing, in the course material they show using a needle nose pliers for spinning your wires together or twisting them together before you install the wire connector. Better tool for that is a lineman plier, a bull nose plier, and that's a way better tool for the job. I've got some supplemental material in my Secrets of the Internet Electrician that show you the proper way to make that splice by twisting the wires together first, then spinning on the wire nut. Also important to note that some wire nuts or wire connectors, they do not suggest that you do that you pre-twist the wires together, but I believe firmly that you get a way better connection if you do that. Again, you got to do it right. So check out that supplemental material. So a lot of the course material here just shows the hot wire and then adding the neutral wire and then the ground. And they do that just to make it simple to understand the connections and not to clutter up the animations and the descriptions too much. But in practice, in trade practice, I think most electricians, including myself, will advise you to connect your ground wires first. I always do it in that order. Connect grounds first, neutrals second, and then the hot conductors last. In addition to that, when they talk about the ground terminations, and it says you only ground the box if it's a metal box, that's not exactly true either. If there's a terminal, even in a plastic box, there may be some metal strapping that bonds the screws for the receptacle itself, and they'll provide a terminal then even in a plastic box. So the basic rule is if there's a ground terminal provided, you must pigtail to that and bond it or connect it or earth it with the other ground wires.